So the one thing that we do with corporate clients is what we call the craveable culture situation, craveable culture effect, craveable culture company, and it's having this culture that's so like palatable that you want. Not only do you want to do more, like you love it. There is a generalized starting place that we could all start from, right? And that's going to the courtroom. And when you go into the courtroom, we could start right there, right? In building our identity. We build our identity from the courtroom.
Nick Jackson has committed his life to helping people of all ages reach their higher purpose and unleash their true potential. Nick is an accomplished educator, motivational speaker, athlete, community activist, ordained minister, and 2014 recipient of the TEDx Cincinnati People's Choice Award. To date, he has enlightened, entertained, and championed the lives of over 265,000 high school and college students. His inspirational speeches are founded in the principles of loving thy neighbor and serving one's community. Brian Rollo, who is a long-time, several-time guest on the Be Better broadcast, a friend of mine and a business partner, introduced Nick to myself. And he said, Brandon, you got to have Nick on the show. Nick's got an incredible energy. He's a great guy. And Nick, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So we attempted to go live, but in the words of authenticity, it didn't work out the way that we anticipated. So this is a rebroadcast for those tuning in now. Thanks for tuning in. Leave your comments anyway to let us know what you think of this conversation, because we're going to be talking about how you can build your professional courage. Now, Nick, you've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people to help them build their courage, become stronger leaders. You've worked with the corporate world, but you started as a school teacher. So talk to me. How did you go from a school teacher to what it is you do now with motivating and impacting the lives of many different types of people?
Wow, that's such a great question. Not only was I a school teacher, I was also a football coach, state championship football coach, Highlands High School. It was a beautiful experience. The bridge looked like this. So I'm coaching my players, I'm loving my guys, and I want to create great fathers. And I'm looking at 14 and 15-year-old young men. So I'm trying to instill them with the things that I've seen in great fathers, right? Now, one of the things that I was able to do at the end of one of the seasons after we won the state championship was I did the speech to the seniors, not at the graduation, but the baccalaureate. It's kind of like a sermon for the seniors, right?
Yeah.
One of the people that was in the crowd was a guy named Chris Collinsworth. Chris Collinsworth is at the time, I think he was with Fox Sports and Showtime, and then he ended up getting the Madden deal after that. But anyways, he asked me to be his personal motivational speaker to the youth. And wow. He connected me with Anthony Munoz, who's like a Cincinnati legend football player, the only one in the Hall of Fame. And they literally opened the door for me to move from the classroom to the auditorium. And wow. It's been awesome ever since.
So when he first confronted you with that and said, Nick, I love what you're doing here as a teacher, as a coach, as everything you're doing, but I want you to be my personal motivational speaker. Like, were you already, like, did you know that this world of speaking and training was out there? Like, what were the initial thoughts when he asked you to do such a thing?
True story. I struggle at times to trust people with money. And so when I was coming from that situation, I was the first African-American teacher or coach in 3 different school districts, right? And wow. This was the third. And there was a lot of people that would come and they would want to offer you things for their own benefit. Yeah. Little did I know that he had started a nonprofit where he was trying to encourage people to get involved in community service. He saw that the kids were encouraged. He saw how I was coaching his son. And he wanted this for other kids. And so when he asked me to do it, I was, 1, a little bit shocked, as in, is it serious? And then 2, I was so honored that somebody saw something special in me. As he would say, like, I discovered you, I was like, my mama discovered me, right? But you gave me an opportunity. I will forever love him for that.
And what did that look like? So you did that. You had your first event, I'm assuming, with a bunch of people in the auditorium. Like, you went from a classroom, I'm sure, of a smaller classroom to now an auditorium with many different people in there. Was there a fear? Did you have to summon courage on your own? Or has courage always been something that's been a part of you and your character?
Yeah, so It's a courage that has always been there. So I've been speaking since I was like 5 or 6 years old, but mostly like church events, like Bible studies and things like that. And then also like my team. I've been a football player, played in college, right? It's a natural kind of occurrence for me to speak. If you don't get me wrong. But my first speech was at the Cintas Center. If you've been to the city of Cincinnati, it is where the Xavier Musketeers play, and a packed house. And Chris Collinsworth and Anthony Munoz are introducing me to stage. I remember the first joke that I landed, and one of the ways that I connect with people's hearts is through either comedy, like humor, right, or deep, intimate stories, ones that we can all kind of relate to and sympathize with, right, for us to go to the next place, right. And so I dropped the first joke, and there was this just loud. I mean, the laughter I will never forget. And then once the laughter was done, there was silence. And that's such an interesting thing. That's such a power. And I was like, okay, with this power, where are we going to go? Yeah. And then I was able to build in these building blocks to help people love themselves. On that day, I knew my life was changed.
That's powerful, man. Help people love themselves, especially when you're speaking to that young audience, right? That audience who hasn't yet figured out who they are or who they want to become. Like when I was in school, I had no idea of the concept that you can work on yourself. I had no idea of the concept of personal development. Like I grew up as this chubby kid. I was always the fat kid, always, since age 6. I always remember. Went from kindergarten being quote unquote skinny kid to first grade, boom, like always the bigger guy in the class, right? It was just it was how I knew myself. I remember even my grandma used to say to me, "Oh, you're not fat, you're just big boned. It's just the way that you're built." Right. And I heard that, and that became part of my identity. I used to think of myself as literally having bigger bones than other people. And I was like, oh, well, this is just a normal thing. I'm always going to be this way. And I wish that I had someone come speak to my school back in the day about self-love and loving yourself. And I remember there was a point where I was 15 years old buying these thermogenics online to lose weight. And it worked actually. And I felt better about myself. And I exercised a little bit during that time too, but it was very much a false way to get the result that I wanted that didn't work for the long term. It was a very short term fix for myself because I still looked in the mirror and thought I was fat. But when I look back at myself during that time, I can see, wow, I became really like unhealthily skinny for a time. So like this message of self-love that you share, was this just an innate knowingness that you knew that the students needed to hear this message? Like, how did you know that this message was a very important message to share with youth at that point in your life?
Oh my goodness. So the self-love message, I'm so glad the way that you poised it. And I just want to point out, I come from an old school Black family. I was not big boned. I was fat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was fat, and there was a lot of like support. You know what I'm saying in it. But also I did have that same negativity. And I just want you to know you're looking good now.
Thanks, brother.
That's real talk. It's real talk. And I really want to dig deep into this because this is a power that I didn't understand. So the self-love stuff for me comes from what I saw with Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Medgar Evers during the civil rights movement. There was a way that people were walking down the street while dogs were chasing them, right? Or they were going to the same neighborhoods and trees where their friends had been hung. This is real life, right? And my grandfather was a part of the Baptist preachers that went down to Mississippi, and they were trying to count how many African Americans were hung through the years, right? And they ended up getting to a point where it was uncomfortable for them, and so they stopped counting, and they called this the Mississippi Burning Letters. This is a real thing. And so I would ask my grandfather and my parents and their friends, so how did you keep faith? You know, like how did you not like waver? How did you not fight violence with violence, right? And they said, my identity doesn't come from the person who's accusing me of something that's not mine. Wow. And I was just astonished. Like, what? So what does it come from, right? And so they would talk about their relationship with their spiritual self, right? They would talk about their relationship with their church, their community, right? But then there was this other portion was their relationship with themselves. So like you can know you to a point where no matter what somebody else calls you, you can say, oh, sorry, that's not me, and keep walking. Yeah. What? And so I took that mantra and I put it on stage. I took that mantra and I put it. This was also talked about in the church, especially in the Black church where I was raised. But like I noticed that this is not talked about wantonly in multiple spaces, and that's what we do.
Wow. Okay, I want to take that and unpack that because that's very powerful, especially in the face of the adversity that they face. Like literally life or death was the adversity they face. That's not the adversity that many of us face today. Many of us, especially many of the kids that you're speaking to and those in the corporate world, they're facing deadlines. They're facing, maybe bullying, which could actually result in life or death. They're facing quotas. They're facing not moving up in the company. Like the problems that we face now are very different than the ones that our ancestors may have faced, especially thousands of years ago. The consequences were you're eaten by a lion or whatever might be the case. So when you talk about identity, but you also talk about it in the sense of life or death, that's very powerful. How does one then, like, where does identity come from if it doesn't come from what other people say? Is identity something that we have to consciously build? Like when you're working with students or people in the corporate world, how do you build an identity? Is it something that you just take a piece of paper and you write down the traits that you want to exhibit? How does one build an identity that not even just build an identity, but how can you build a version of yourself that you can easily and powerfully stand behind and know to be your true self?
Yeah. Oh, I love that one. All right. So now, if you look at it like it's a courthouse, right? And you have your prosecuting attorney, right? That's all your negative evidence. So your prosecuting attorney is good and trained in knowing not only you, but your downfalls, the bad things about you. And if you've lived longer than a day, most likely you've done something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can build your identity off of their prosecuting attorney, and your prosecuting attorney is looking for other people to agree with them, right? It's about agreement. It's this focus, if you will, on the evidence, right, and the way that it's presented to you. On the same hand, there's the defense. Now, the defense attorney, right, is looking at you as a whole person, not just you, just this situation, not what someone else called you, but as a whole body of work, right, and is defending you, right, and defending you in such a way that you get to be in your own judge and jury. So you get to be sitting in the jury, right, and you get to sit there and listen to the evidence. Also, you get to be the judge. Right, you get to sit there on this big old throne in the middle of this courtroom, right, and say, I agree with the prosecutor, or I agree with the defense.
Wow.
You get to choose that.
So we're the judge.
You're the judge and the jury. Let's go to the court. Now, here's the thing that's so interesting, and you'll notice this. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I'm very good at listening to the prosecuting attorney. Man, especially as a person who's out in public, who's in front, right? Like I feel judged by what I wear. I feel judged by what I look like. I bring the past hurts, like you talked about, the feeling, not just being told, right, but the feeling of believing that you're overweight, or the feeling of believing that you're big boned, right? Which means you're different. You feel what I'm saying? And for you to be accepted, you have to not be you. You know how many people feel that way?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, okay, so you've listened to the prosecuting attorney and you've believed that. And you can just walk up to people and recognize, like, oh, okay, this is the prosecutor talking. You know? Yeah, like this is this is the defense. This is the defense. Okay, all right, I'm seeing it. And every person has an opportunity to play on both sides.
Damn. That's a powerful metaphor, man, especially for someone who doesn't, like myself. Like even when I was in my early 20s, I didn't have a model like that I could look at when I was having thoughts that didn't serve me, or when I did something and I felt ashamed from it, or I felt like it was not repairable. Like there's always the two sides. There's always that prosecution and there's always the defense. But I was so heavily trained on just listening, like you said, to the prosecutor and what they had to say. And they said, well, Brandon, you took this action 10 years ago, which means that you are this. But something I learned, especially when I started moving into leadership in my first corporate career, is a person is not defined by their actions, right? You are not your actions. You are the whole self, right? And an action might be one thing that you did, but a person is not their behavior. So if you showed up 10 minutes late to a meeting and maybe you did it 3 times, you're still not a bad person. that action might not have been the best action. That didn't get the best result for you, and it might have held other people back too. But you can improve, you can get better, and that action does not mean that that is your character. It's simply a fault in itself. And that helped me as a leader not be like, this person doesn't care, this person's a bad person, they don't care about this job, they were late 3 times. And it allowed me to have grace and forgiveness when people made a mistake. And it allowed me to have that conversation. Listen, I don't think that you're a bad person. I just think that you're late very often. So how can I help you to fix this? Because this is the consequence of that action.
And I got to also say, in the name of this podcast, the Be Better, it's not act better, right? It's not understand better, right? It's not joke better, right? It's actually being better. So when you consume an identity of like, so Speak Love is our student brand, right? When you consume, and our hashtag is I am Speak Love, right? In every corporate speech that we do a free speech for an inner city or a school in need, right? But when you, a vulnerable school, we like to call it, when you consume the identity of better, and you allow yourself to live there, when you are late, you self-recognize, right? So like, you're like, hold on a second, I'm better than that. You walk into the meeting not with an excuse, but a promise, right? So I'm going to be better. I am better than this, right? You deserve more. I'm sorry. This is what I'm going to do to fix it. Let's join the meeting. Thank you for having me. It changes your the way you walk into a room. Now, this was happening on the level of children, right? And I remember I had a conversation with a kid from a small Catholic school who was like, I came home and I couldn't find my dad, and he's usually home when I'm home because he works from home. And I went into the garage, and when I stepped down from one of the steps in the garage, my feet were sticking to the ground. Little did I know, when I flicked on the light, my dad had committed suicide and I was standing in his blood.
Oh my God.
She said, thank you so much for speaking to my school, but what are you going to do for my dad's? And I was like, whoa, like what, like this is a message, right? That's working with the youth, right? This is multiple years ago. How do I curtail this message to work with adults? And it was an easy flow to bring the same self-love. It's the easy message. It's an easy thing to do. And I noticed that once people gain traction in it, it becomes easier to recognize the prosecuting attorney, right? Wow. Like it becomes easier to recognize when you are your own prosecuting attorney, right? And so when you're moving to the defense is a whole lot harder, right? Because you're defending yourself.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. I think about the story that you just told of that man who ended his life. And I think about, what if he was in an auditorium when he was younger and heard that exact story of the prosecution and the defense? Maybe he would have had the tools necessary in order to ask himself the questions of, who am I? Who do I want to become? How can I continue to be better? How can I help to repair my life? Because when I've never been in that situation, so I can't speak from a situation where I've wanted to end my life, but I know many people have, right? And I can only imagine that in that situation, you feel like there's no other option. You feel like you've exhausted all resources, but there's always another resource. There's always another tool that you can add to your toolbox in order to become better, but not just become better, but feel better, right? And be happy and be able to, like what you said, speak love, not just speak love for other people, but speak love for yourself. Yeah. And I heard you say in a video too, and I thought it was I loved it because it was very direct and it's very true. And it was well received, where you said to a group of teachers that you were speaking to, if you're not good, then your class isn't going to be good. Yeah. Right. And it's very freaking true, because I've worked with leaders for the last 10 years of my life. And the message is, if you're not good, then your team isn't going to be good. If you're not good, then your family is not going to be good, because everything stems down and trickles down from the top. Right. Yeah. So when you're talking about being better, how does one begin to be better? Is there one starting place that if you were in front of, 100 people right now, maybe even the people listening, is there one place where everyone can start from? Or is that starting place going to be different for each person?
Wow. So there is a generalized starting place that we could all start from, right? And that's going to the courtroom. We could all go to the courtroom. Everybody can go to the courtroom, and you can trump up charges on yourself. We do it every day. I'm fat. I was late to meetings. I didn't have a cover on my TPS report. Like you can have all of these situations, right? And when you go into the courtroom, we could start right there, right, in building our identity. We build our identity from the courtroom. We don't even recognize that. It's from the evidence that we build our, and then we have other people in our life that confirm. So if you're in a situation where someone said something bad about you and you also agree with it, that's a double hit, right? If somebody says something about you that's negative and you don't agree with it, it's easier for you to let it go, right? So you have to see that you are agreeing, right, with the prosecuting attorney, and then you get to listen to the defense. You get to create a defense, not excuse, right? But you get to defend yourself in a way that you can walk in. So once you start defending yourself and then actually stepping into it, that's when the actions really get started. And back to the whole quickly self-harm thing. We are self-harming ourselves in multiple different ways. It could be drugs, sex. It could be negative talk in your workplace. One of the things that we deal with in our company and others, and I've done it too, is browning out, right? Like just doing enough not to get fired. So you're in a company and you're just doing enough, and that spreads like cancer, right? So people are starting to defend their actions of not doing enough instead of going to work with the vision and focus of making this a better place, right?
Yes.
And so leaders, when they're operating out of their browning out phase, or leaders that are hitting all the high notes, right? Like you are hitting the high notes, but your home life is trash, right? The way you're treating yourself is trash. You can hit the high notes and absolutely crash and burn. And you're taking everybody with you. So how do we, as a company, create a healthy environment so we can all move forward together?
That's a big undertaking, brother. It's a big undertaking, but a very worthwhile and necessary undertaking. And I found that the companies who recognize that are the companies who enlist you, I'm assuming, aren't the companies who are beyond repair, right? There's a lot of businesses and companies who would say, I can't hire a Nick Jackson. Nick wants this much to come to our company and fix the problem. But it's the ones who recognize they have a problem and want to continue to get better. They're generally already doing pretty well. I found that a lot of my clients are already doing really well. They just want to take it to the next level, or they recognize that they have a lot of people on their team, maybe even themselves, who are just doing enough to get by. And they want to know, how can I go from that to going over that line and doing more than what is expected of me all the time, creating a new norm, creating a new culture of not just overachievers, not just doing more than what you're paid for. But we all know if you do more than what you're paid for long enough, eventually you'll be paid more than what you're actually doing. It's like a value exchange in a way. Like, how do you go from, and I think this ties directly into building professional courage. How do you muster up the professional courage to step over that line and actually do more? Because I feel like it's a pattern that we can get stuck in, the pattern of just doing enough. And eventually that becomes normal. Everyone around you is doing the same, right? And then when someone steps out of that and does more, then the prosecutor comes in and says, why are you doing more? You're making everyone else look bad. Stop doing more. Step back, right? Like, I know this is a big question, but how does one cross that chasm?
Oh, I'm so glad that you brought. So the one thing that we do with corporate clients is what we call the craveable culture situation, craveable culture effect, craveable culture company, and it's having this culture that's so like palatable that you want. Not only do you want to do more, like you love it. I was talking to some workers at IKEA, and it was amazing when they were talking about how their products from the implementation all the way through the supply chain and are green, and they trust it and they believe what they're selling because they believe that the impact that they're having on this earth is not only beautifying, right, but also making better. And because of such, I'm going to work in my job at a different rate. Now, you could look at an IKEA worker any way you look at an IKEA worker, but I've met a few passionate ones, right? And then I was like, okay, how do we move this into General Electric? Yeah. Like, how do we move this into Walmart? How do we move this into Nike? Right. The thing is, there's procedures and there's already systems in place that are great. The problem is the buy-in. Like, how many times have we been in an establishment where our leadership has bought on to a brand new product, and there's another one going to come up in the next 5 months that we have to act like we believe in because we have to now do this, right? The buy-in is low. What it is what we do is we find the vision of the company, right? And then we have a let's go to the court moment. Is this who we are? Is this where we are, right? Prosecuting in defense. What do we have to do to get there? Now, are we willing to walk it out together as a team? If we're not, let's take a quick assessment, right? And see where we are. Because if you're not ready, it's probably for a reason, right? Let's go back to the court. If you are ready, are you also ready to take these steps, right? Let them be risky, let it be more work, right? To take these steps and actually believe, right, that it's worth doing. Not just do it because we've bought into a new program, but do you believe it? And sometimes we don't do the work needed to build the belief because we're so busy to get the product done get the product done and set up right. And so what we do is we take a pause moment and we go down to the judge, we go down to the courthouse.
I love that. I want to talk about how to build that belief because I think there's, just to unpack what you just said, because that was very powerful. You said that when you talked to those people at IKEA who were really bought in, they were bought in because they really, really believed in the product, right? Yeah. You said it in a much more elegant way, but the reality is they believe in the product because the product is green, right? And then you said, well, how do we translate that to Walmart? How do we translate that to Nike? Well, you can also love your mission. You can love the vision of just do it, right? Every single day, do the things that you don't want to do because you know you need to do it, right? Just like the David Goggins idea of, I hate doing this every day, but I do it because it's a necessary evil. And as soon as I'm through the suck, then I feel better. Right. So you embrace the suck and then you feel better afterwards. Right. That's what Joe Rogan and David just said on their recent podcast together. Now, okay. So let's say we've got a great mission. Like I'm working with a company and they're a boating business. Okay. And I might be doing a presentation for their employees and we're actually talking about vision and mission. And a lot of them might, I don't know this yet for sure, but I did have a couple conversations with the leaders, which is always different than what the team actually thinks themselves. There's always that gap there in the communication at times, but they believe that they're just selling boats, right? They're just selling a boat. Right. That's a high ticket item. You know, some people want it, some people won't. But I even asked the leaders, you know, what are you really doing here? Right? You're not just selling a boat. Like, what are you really doing for people? And then they started to think and they're like, well, we're selling an escape from daily life. We're selling an escape from stress. We're providing, and I forget exactly what they said, but they are providing essentially this experience, this ethereal experience. And just that flick in the mind of, I'm not selling a boat, I'm providing these individuals with a stress-free escape in an experience that they can bring their family on and enjoy a day together of bonding, of low stress, of happiness, right? So when you switch your perspective from that of I'm just selling this product, this shelf at IKEA, this pair of shoes, to I'm providing a feeling, an emotion, an experience for people, that right there helps to build belief. But is there another way? Because you can say to someone in a room, do you believe in what you do? This is your mission statement. And they can say, yeah, I believe in that. But you can tell that maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, their belief is actually a 2. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you build that belief?
Yeah. So it's a sympathetic communication. So it's important that you, as the speaker or presenter, are connecting with something that they have sympathy with, right? One of mine is child rearing. Okay. So I love my kid more than I ever thought I would ever love my kid, but wiping diapers, right? Dealing with tantrums in public, that's not cool, right? And to be able to tell a joke, see what just happened there? See how you laugh right there, right?
Yeah.
And then right at the end of the laugh, now you're listening. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is when you come to present, it is that experience. Oh my gosh, you just reminded me of when my grandma was just about to pass. All she wanted to do was ride on boats. And one of my jobs was to push her wheelchair up to the top of the boat so she could feel that wind in her hair.
Like Titanic.
Yeah, like that. And she was a person that worked really hard all her life, raised all her kids, and she never had that experience until right before she passed. Now, the people that built that boat have no idea that my grandma was even out there. They had no idea. They were just they're just putting nails in the wall. You know what I'm saying, or nails in boat wood or whatever. But like, what ends up happening is when we start to see the bigger picture in the place that we have within it, we're like, okay, sometimes we got to change a diaper. But I'm changing a diaper for the next lawyer. I'm changing a diaper for the next doctor. I'm putting this nail in for the next grandma who's gonna do this before she goes to see the Lord. Like, this is what I do with my hands. I create experiences. And not to sell it in something that's fluffy, right? Because a lot of people, and this is tough, have never experienced what they're doing. Yes. So let me say it like this. As a speaker, very rarely am I this moved in the auditorium by anybody else, right? Yeah. When I am moved, right? And when I am impelled because of the honesty, because of the connection, right? And because of the focus, the rawness, that comes with really good stuff, right? Like, I'm like, I want this all the time. Yeah. I want this for everyone. We have to recognize as we're coming in as third parties, we're not going to be there every day. So we have to impel our workers to be our speakers. What do you need to step into this place? Do you need that experience? Do you need to meet that grandma? What do you need to really buy in? And that's the belief. Once you get that, it's different than having a pay raise or a better title. It's a belief.
Wow. I think the courtroom ties in very well to what you just said too, because like working in the cell phone industry for many years, those who sold the most cell phones also believed that they were providing a greater service to people that was larger than simply selling a cell phone, rather than just, oh, I sold her an iPhone. No, you allowed this grandmother to now have conversations with her family that moved away years ago. Yeah. At the tap of a button, they can FaceTime their daughter. At the tap of a button, they can order something and send a gift, send an edible arrangement, whatever it might be. Like, you are connecting people to their family, even if their family are worlds apart. And I think what you just said, for those listening, I think this is very practical for everybody, because think about what you do right now, whether it's as a leader, as a salesperson, as a professional in a company, or maybe you are a high school student listening to this podcast right now, and really ask yourself, what is the story that you tell yourself about what it is you do on a daily basis? Are you driving 30 minutes to a store to sell something, or are you taking that trip every day in order to provide an experience that will really help to change somebody's life? Because I think that will make a big difference. Whatever the story is will determine the action that you put in, and that action will result in a very different outcome. Like what you said, when you're in the auditorium as an observer, like, you've seen many people who've come in and spoken who haven't moved you, right? I'm sure many have, but many haven't. And you're able to look at those who haven't and say, I'm going to do the opposite of what they're doing when I'm at the front of the stage. So look around you, everyone else, look around you, everyone who isn't performing at a specific level. What are they not doing? And I bet it has a lot to do with they're not telling themselves the story or aligning themselves to the vision or the mission or the product enough to allow themselves to have exponential results in their career, in their sales, or in their life even.
Do you mind if I jump in on that?
Please.
So a lot of times as presenters, we think we're the speaker. That's the problem, right? So that's why our company, now it says Speak Love on our logo for our youth, but our stuff is I Am Speak Love. So if you're reading the name of the company, you are also reading your identity. I am Speak Love, and what is Speak Love to you, right? Now, what ends up happening is really good speakers impel you to also speak. If you have really good food, one of the things that we do is we have that moment where we're like, that's the best thing I ever tasted. And then we see our boys and we're like, hey, you got to go over to Sally Jane's. Like that stuff is amazing, right? Like, I had it. I've never had stuff taste so good, right? There is this thing that happens when you're truly impelled, that you're the natural speaker. And that's what we're trying to get. I really don't need people to know my name. Like, I that's not the thing. When I'm coming into your company, I don't want you to know my name. I hope you like my jokes. I think that's cool. but what I want you to do is to know your name. Yeah. To know your importance, and to know that this whole company, it ride or dies with you. Right. And what we do here is not just create products. We are great people that create great things for a great world. And if you don't believe that you're on that trajectory, we might need to talk about leaving. Right. Because this is a place for people who are ready to grow. And that's the culture that we want for our new, because we got all these kids coming out of college. Right. And it's funny because most college kids, they want $1 million for showing up. You know what I'm saying? They're coming in and they're like, my friend made $250,000. I want $300,000. I don't want to do any work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes we stop there. You know what I mean? And like that's a great time to have a conversation.
Yes.
The conversation isn't what they're not going to do or what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do you recognize who you could be?
Yes.
The experience that these boat makers have by creating that vessel for people to have this other world experience when that wind is in your hair.
That's right.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
I'd like to do it with you. And so it's a different conversation.
It's a different story.
Yeah.
And I love that, man. I think a lot of what we've talked about so far is there's several different ways to look at the same thing. And the way that you're looking at it will determine the way that you feel about it. And that will determine what you get out of that conversation, as well as what you give. I mean, what you get is based on what you give. And that college student coming right out of school to get the 300 grand, they don't understand yet the value exchange, right? They don't understand yet that when they give more to the universe, or when they give more to God, or when they give more to whatever they believe, that is when they begin to receive. And I think we could take this in so many different directions, but I got to ask you, what is the Courageous Culture Community? Talk to me about this, because I know this is one of the big projects you're working on.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. What is it? What's it all about?
So the one thing that I've noticed, especially because I'm a faith-based entrepreneur, is that a lot of people, they feel called to make a change in the world, but they don't feel like they're called to be either good enough to do so, or they have this thing. It's so crazy because when you have these dreams, if you don't act on your dreams and you see them again, they become nightmares. And so like you'll be a young kid and you saw yourself as this, but the world isn't showing me what I saw. And when I close my eyes, I see it. I open up my eyes, I see something different. Did I give up? Did I separate myself from that version of me? Is it no longer possible? Or do I have the courage to go and find it? And so what we do in the courageous culture is we encourage people to take that step of courage, and we support each other while we're doing it. When I was moving from education to motivational speaking, like my family thought I was crazy. I mean, I was a 2-time state championship football coach. I was changing race relations in some pretty interesting communities to do so. And my kids, they were going to big colleges and playing in the NFL. So this was like a thing. I was a part of one of the best staffs in our state's history. Like this is a thing. For your child to have success, right, and want more, or for your boyfriend, right, to say, okay, I'm gonna quit my job and go speak for a living, right, without the insurance, without the whatever. Like it takes a level of courage. And so what we do is we take baby steps.
Yeah,
take one step, just 1 degree. So a lot of times it's innovating within your own culture of work. And sometimes it's innovating within your family, having the courage to want more, or to even ask for more, right? Or it's the courage to start your own business.
Yes. There's a lot of things that you can use that courage for. Many things that we haven't touched on, but many that we have. And I know that right now, and guys, there's a link in the description to check out the Courageous Culture Community for yourself, see what it's all about. Because if you love Nick's energy during this, imagine what you'll get when you're working with him and his group of, others who are in similar situations to you, all looking to live a better life and become more and to speak more love, right? Yeah. So I know that you're offering the first meeting in the Courageous Culture Community is free. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Very cool.
First
so anyone can get a taste.
Yeah. And if you just come for the taste, that's totally fine. Not all of us are called to journey together. But if you feel that you are in that place where you need to take a step of courage and you need the support, or if you've already taken that step, I mean, as an entrepreneur, like I'm looking right at you. As a matter of fact, if you've already taken, if you found yourself in need of support, you are not alone.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I love what you've built. I know you have one of these for the corporate side of things as well. So you're a busy man. You're doing a lot of things, but I know it comes from a place of you love to help people. You found really what your calling is in this world. And you're a great example, Nick, of someone who's really found their calling and who acts on it and who joins these conversations. And even while you're on the road, you're doing all the things you're doing, you're still here sharing this with all of us. So guys, I ask you, check out the link in the description for the Courageous Culture Community. See if it's for you. join one of the meetings. If it's not for you, maybe it will be in the future, or maybe you know someone who it is for, but get around people like Nick, because proximity is power, right? You become the people that you're around most of the time. And I know that I'm better off just for this conversation. You've given me many tools that I'm going to use in my own life. I love the courthouse idea. And I love your correlation between purpose and the story that you tell yourself inside of the organization or culture that you're in. So, Nick, I think this has been a profound conversation, and I'm glad that we made it happen, brother.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Do you mind if I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
There's a song that my grandfather used to sing that was really popular in the civil rights movement, and it's "We Shall Overcome." And it's not I shall or Brandon shall or somebody else shall, like we together, the combined power that we have, the love that we have, shall overcome all issues. And so if anybody's going through anything right now, I want you to know that you are not alone. Tie in, like he said, proximity. I love the way that you said that, because proximity is power. You want to get yourself close to people that believe that we will overcome. We shall overcome.
I can't think of any better way to wrap it up, brother. Thank you for that. Love is powerful and love is everything, and that's how we will overcome. So thank you very much, Nick, for this amazing conversation, brother.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Guys, I hope that there was something in this conversation for you, no matter whether you are that student in school, whether you're in college looking at what your next step is going to be for your life, or whether you're in that organization or culture, whether it's your own business or whether you're a part of someone else's business. Aligning that mission with your own mission, aligning their purpose with your purpose. That's how you go from ordinary to extraordinary. And there's a lot of tools and resources from this conversation that I hope that you'll use to take your life to that next level and continue to be better. Connect with Nick. Links are in the description to his social medias, as well as the Courageous Culture community that we talked about. The first meeting is free. Join, have a taste, see what it's all about. And if it's for you, you can talk to Nick about taking it to that next level as well. If you found any value from this conversation, please share this show with just one other person. We don't run ads. We don't have sponsors. And we do that because you're the best part of the Be Better team. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.